Hi everyone, I'm Paige Abbott, and this is your weekly recovery message on the topic of grounding techniques. Do you ever have times where your mind just races 1,000 miles an hour? Your feelings are feeling really strong, really intense? Well, you're not alone. Most of us have those experiences from time to time, and therefore learning how to ground yourself back in the moment, back in reality, is really important. One of my most recommended techniques that I find helpful is a technique that I call the five senses. So it's a mindfulness technique, and the aim of that is to slowly, consciously, and purposefully walk yourself through the five senses right in this moment. So taking time to either literally out loud or in your mind tell yourself and describe to yourself what you're seeing, picking either one object or describing the room, what's in your visual field around you. What do you hear? Taking time to actually listen, and again, describing the sounds that you're hearing. Are you hearing the whisper of a vent? Are you hearing birds chirping outside? Are you hearing people talking? Are you hearing music? And even then describing the music that you're hearing. What can you taste? So going with the sensations that are in your mouth at that present moment. Touch. So maybe picking an object or picking clothing, something that's right nearby for you to touch, and again, ground yourself in that sense of tactile touching. And then what's the last one? What can you smell? So looking at the smells in the field around you, describing them to yourself, taking a nice deep breath in. That leads us to our second grounding technique of breath. So consciously, purposefully focusing on breath. At the beginning, you don't even have to try and do anything with your breath. Just paying attention to it will promote some natural change and some natural slowing down. If you find that your breathing is quite shallow, you're breathing in your chest, kind of panting, then you can make a point of bringing yourself to deeper breaths that actually go straight down into your stomach, and just talking yourself through deep breaths in, holding them for 3 or 4 seconds, and then exhaling and trying to match the counts of the breath. So if you breathe in for 4, then you exhale for 4. Both of these techniques, the five senses and breathing, are mindfulness techniques. And when our mind is spinning, our emotions are racing, this is what we need in those moments, is we need to come back to reality. Our mind races and our heart races when we're somewhere else other than here. We're in a story, we're in a memory, we're in a fantasy, we're in a fear of what could or couldn't happen. So we need to talk ourselves back to what's real right in this moment. Self-talk is another helpful grounding tool. So developing some anchoring words or mantras or statements, things that anchor you back to what's real. So it can be a word, strength, reality, present, mindfulness. It can be a statement. I am here, I am safe, I am grounded, things like that. Something that's short, something that's simple, that you can bring up in those moments where you're feeling triggered. Additionally, when you've started to feel you're calming down a little bit, or even if you're not calming down a little bit, reaching out, having somebody who is a support that you can talk to and receive empathy and non-judgmental care is very important. Some people find music can be helpful and cathartic, art can be helpful and cathartic, writing can be helpful and cathartic. Again, whatever tools you have found help you to process, but in that specific moment where you're feeling activated, I wouldn't encourage you to go right into the processing, because you might be so elevated and activated that doing that is quite difficult, if not impossible, and may just promote more spinning. So what's crucial to do in that acute distress moment is just ground yourself back in reality, to remind yourself that you're safe, attach yourself to your environment. again, ground yourself that this is where I am, this is what's happening right here in this moment. And you will start to recognize when we take life moment by moment, rather than big chunks of time at a time, that life actually is much more simple than those racing thoughts and those racing feelings would tell us. I wish you the best in ongoing practice of grounding yourself. These are techniques I would encourage you to practice when you're not feeling very triggered or very grounded, so that way you have some familiarity and some resiliency built up with the tools, so that when you are feeling activated, then they're a little bit easier to fall back on. Easier in the sense that you've practiced them, so there's some familiarity, but also ease that they'll actually come to mind. You may also want to write down a checklist for yourself that you keep with you on your phone, tucked into your wallet or your purse, so that you can bring that up in those moments where you're feeling triggered, so that you can remind yourself action steps that you can take to help yourself through that moment. And to remember, you've got your own back and you've got this. I wish you the best in your ongoing journey of recovery. Keep grounding yourself, keep staying in reality. It can be a great place to be.